This is one of the first things I read in this that caught my eye, and it's actually in the preface, and it says, can a computer do it for you? Can somebody overseas do it cheaper? What I'm offering in demand, is it in demand in an age of abundance? The only job security, to the extent that it exists, will reside in your ability to be high concept, high touch. And I started thinking that, okay, this is a book about jobs, that understands about jobs, but I think it's much more than that. I think it is about change your entire life. Because once you go down this wormhole, right, you change everything. So let's start that there first with 3 minutes of who you are and how you came to this.
Wow. Okay. So, as I mentioned, there was the Berkeley undergrad, the checkbox life, becoming the poster child for society's life plan. And as I said, I didn't fit. And so I kept getting fired from multiple jobs. I've been fired from almost every real job that I've been at, which is why I have such an aversion to real jobs. I don't like being in offices. I say I'm allergic to cubicles and corporate offices. And so, this continued, but the thing is that nobody said, hey, there's another way, there's other options out here, because this was, I think, post 2000, like the first dot-com bubble had burst. I graduated into one recession. And so after 10 years of sales jobs, about 7 years actually, of sales jobs and things that I just didn't like doing, I finally thought, I'm going to push the reset button on my life. I'm going to go to business school, and I'm going to wipe out this, crucible of a resume, which is what a career counselor who worked with me on my business school application called it. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is a chance to reinvent myself. And so that summer, I ended up interning.
More education.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we believed. That's what we thought was the answer.
I know.
And so I ended up being an intern with Intuit's TurboTax group. And at the end of the summer, not surprisingly now, knowing what I know about myself, I didn't get an offer. And my boss told me, he said, "I'm doing you a huge favor. Trust me." And I jokingly said, well, considering I don't particularly enjoy paying taxes, I guess not working on them for a living worked out okay. But where it really became interesting was when I graduated. I graduated in April 2009. So, nobody plans for their life to have, you graduate from, 2 schools twice into recessions that are both horrendous. And that was rock bottom. That was it. It was kind of like, wow, I'm 30 years old. I have whatever financial aid money is left, and I moved home. I literally was out of money. But in the process, this is something I have to mention. One of the other things I discovered was this absolute love for surfing. And I'm not genetically predisposed for anything athletic. I was always the worst player. I was the most improved player on every sports team I've ever been on, which actually means you're the worst player on the team.
Right.
When, it takes a season to be called that. So, and surfing requires an insane amount of athletic skill. But I found that it was this just beautiful escape from everything else that was going on in my life. It's like, wow, my life is a disaster. It's a train wreck. I'm at rock bottom. But 6 hours a day, I'm in this medium that completely changes that and makes it seem so different so that my circumstances aren't going to become my identity. And in that process, I started playing with all these online tools. I ended up creating one blog. That eventually led to the formation of a show that I run today. Bit by bit, it all just started, coming together. And I created this show called Blogcast FM, where I've interviewed 400 plus bloggers, authors, content creators. I mean, the woman who wrote the foreword, the section that you were just reading, is a woman named Justine Musk, and I know her because she actually wrote she was one of the people I'd interviewed on my show. But I'm not going to tell you that it came without a lot of hurdles. This has been a roller coaster ride.
Could you say, and then we have to take a quick break, but if you were my son and you had finished everything and you said to me, I'm going to go surfing, I'd say, what? I'd have a really hard time. My father had a really hard time with me when I said, I'm going to leave radio. I was 35 years old. I'm going to leave radio. And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. But it was the moment of complete surrender. It was like, I don't know. I'm just no longer going to do what is not inside of me, right? My dad said, well, why don't you then find out what's inside of you? And that's what you did, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's deeply informed every single part of my life. I mean, I jokingly say the only thing I ever really wanted was to be able to surf every day. And I said, if, however that was facilitated, I would do everything. Okay.
All right. Name of the book. I can't recommend it highly enough. The Art of Being Unmistakable. It is the future, it is what's coming, and it is the way out of just about every mess the world finds itself in. I want to talk, but we have about 4 minutes. I want to talk about a few things. First, mimic versus model. Tell me what that is.
Well, this is a big passion of mine. You know, one of the things that I get a view into the subculture of the web that most people don't, because I have a show where I interview people. And so often, I mean, I'm constantly looking for the most oddball, most unique people I can find. And this is hard. It's not easy. What makes this so challenging is we provide everybody with best practices and things you can do and how to grow a following. And the danger of that, and one of the problems we're running into, is that people see what works and they try to make it better. And they try to do it that way. What they miss is how to make it different. This goes back to how do you put your signature on it? How do you deliver an experience that only you could deliver, that nobody else could? And that's, in my mind, you know, being unmistakable. This isn't just, you know, an ethos for like the individual. This is something we have to do in our products. This is something we have to do in our services. But we have that at our disposal. You know, being unmistakable and making yourself that way, that's a choice. Like, you know, anybody who's working at some graphic design department in one of the airlines we talked about could go and say, you know what, from now on, we're going to print the destinations wherever you're going on boarding passes because we think it would be a more pleasurable experience. And you know what? Somebody will talk about that. But somebody actually has to make the choice to do it and say, you know what? We're going to do that. And so it's about taking your signature and putting on things. I had a friend who had a performing arts background. She says, what do you think? I should sing marketing tips? I said, why not? Nobody else could do that. Only you could do that. So
okay, so mimic versus model, meaning don't find something good and then just try to make it better.
Well, I think we can look at people who are good at what they do as role models and mentors and really develop taste. But at a certain point, you have to bring your own flavor to it.
And that kind of goes into truth and honesty, because if you have truth and honesty, you're not modeling. Or you're not mimicking.
No, not at all.
So explain truth and honesty.
Well, I mean, you know, if you look at the Amazon description of this book, I told you I committed career suicide, one Facebook status update at a time. The irony is that I think I won't be living at my parents' house any longer.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's really weird, right? Like everything about this basically says, you know, like any branding expert would say, this is a disaster. Nobody is going to hire you based on doing all the searches of all these things that they found, because I wrote this entire book through Facebook status updates. It was done in a very, very public way. And on my 34th birthday, I just outed myself completely. I talked about the jobs I'd been fired from. I talked about the relationships I'd failed at. And I talked about the fact that letting all of this go was amazing. Because, and you know, here's the thing. I thought it was career suicide. What I found was that it was actually the thing that connected people to me like they had never connected before. Because there's something about, because the thing is, when you have nothing left but your truth, what else are you going to share? All the bad things that could have happened to me in my life, and you know, there are people who live far worse lives than I have that have experienced, you know, far worse catastrophes. But in the context of my life, all the things that could have possibly gone wrong pretty much did. I was like, okay, what else could possibly go wrong here? So the only thing left is to start telling the truth. And as I've learned in the last few weeks,
sets you free.
The truth actually does something mind-blowingly cool to your life. And it's terrifying to do it.
I tell you, I'm smiling at you because anybody who has watched me or listened to me for a very long time knows why I like you and connect to this book. The day I thought I was going to end my career, I told the truth. And somebody had pushed me up against the wall on the air, and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I don't really give a flying crap anymore. And I said, you know what? You don't know me at all. Let me tell you who I am. And this is right after I sobered up. And so I got a lot of stuff that I hadn't shared. And I said, let me tell you who I am and the mistakes I've made. I turned off the microphone. I looked at one of the producers and I said, write it down. This is the day that Glenn Beck ended his career. It started my career because people came up and said, oh, I know who you are. You know what? I've been there. And so it was honest. And that's what people are afraid of the most. Okay, real quick, give me the line. We were talking about it off the air.
Yeah.
Give me the one line of this book. This sums it up.
Yeah.
5 seconds.
You know, art that rewards its creator long after the average person would quit is admired, but it's rarely encouraged.
Get the book. Back in a minute.